obviously she needs to start by educating them over.
The status quo with improvements is what we posit today, Mr. Speaker.
We're well aware that the people are not satisfied with the status quo.
Why should voting be compulsory? Mr. Speaker, we are all aware that our present situation is less than desirable. This is due largely to certain decisions by the government in the past. I begin by saying that these slip-ups have caused too many Jamaican citizens to detach themselves from things political. Mr. Speaker, we cannot and will not allow our people to choose to sit at the back seat, silently watching as the sweet and beautiful land of food and water continues to drown in avoidable problems, especially when they can help. Our Jamaican citizens have long fought for their voices to be heard, and this reformation is granting just that. By implementing mandatory voting, we are indeed boosting democracy.
What the government is doing is infringing upon these rights that you have been given since the establishment of this country.
Point of information, sir.
Not accepted. Wouldn't mandatory voting only increase the selling of votes? Wouldn't one want to sell their votes to a higher bidder, and thus see what they can get out of the political situation?
Mr. Speaker, the opposition tried but failed miserably to support their arguments that mandatory voting should not be implemented in Jamaica. Our people are suffering from a false sense of democracy. The people are oblivious to the amount of power they wield, but if voting becomes mandatory, then they will be able to exercise their authority, Mr. Speaker. Persons who are voting are from a particular class. Then the person who is elected to rule the country, what they will impose in the country, it is not representative of what Jamaica wants overall. It's time for a change now. We cannot change the way things have always been by doing things the way they have always been done. Voting should be mandatory so that we can give the people a chance to be represented.
Mandatory voting, it violates our constitutional rights, namely Chapter 3, Section 13, Subsection 3, Paragraph B and C of the Jamaica Constitution. It states that everyone has a right to the freedom of thought, conscience, belief, observation of political doctrine. Mandatory voting opens the room for pork-barrel politics. It is the government going into neighborhoods and communities and offering them white rice and curry goat and tell them that, vote for me, please.
Point of information.
Accepted.
Are you aware that pork-barrel politics happens as a result of polarization when only 50% controls the voting landscape? And if you legitimately have a massive voting, then the government cannot practice that sort of politics.
The government has said that they want to make voting mandatory. They're forcing persons who are incapable of making sound and knowledgeable political decisions to make one. If I'm not further needed, I'd like to end this.
We thought that we had today a very, very enthralling debate. The content was rich, the exchange was fierce, and the analysis was deep. We thought that a major issue in this debate was whether absence from the ballot box, refraining from voting, whether that is an unequivocal indication of apathy. Whether or not the fact that upwards of 50% of Jamaicans do not vote, whether we can say with certainty that the reason they're not voting is because they just don't care. The second challenge that we had to contend with was this question of the right to abstain versus some sense of civic responsibility. And then the idea of what are the prerequisites for such a policy like this. So we heard from opening government particularly that there's to be an extensive program of education and enlightenment. Good, we thought that both summer speakers God had a good enough appreciation as to what transpired in the debate. We're going to be having a tertiary champion and the secondary champion, and a tertiary second place, as well as a secondary second place.
So the tertiary winner today is Opening Government, Northern Caribbean University. Our secondary winner is the Queen's School. We also have prizes for our tertiary and secondary runners-up. We'll present the tertiary runner-up to Utech. We'll ask Mrs. Dorothy Pan McCarthy to present the secondary runner-up to Jamaica College.
It was an exciting opportunity, and it offers us a privilege to really debate things that are important, things that matters to our country.
Well, I think the competition was excellent. I believe that all the major points came out, the major points that Jamaicans, the average Jamaican should actually consider as it relates to mandatory voting.
You know, adult suffrage is something that was very important in our history, and today we really reap the benefits of that. And so we really understand the consequence and the need for talking about topics such as these.
I think good points came out from both sides. My team lost, so I'm not very pleased about that, but overall it was very informative for us as debaters, and I'm sure for the majority of those who are here today in attendance.
Although I'm not yet sure as to which side I'm on in reality, it's definitely good to know both sides of the arguments and, you know, not just jump to conclusions and say voting should not be mandatory because that's what we're accustomed to.
Well, I thought it was a good competition, you know, as in we had a formidable opponents, as in Queen's High School for girls. They beat us already, you know, but I'm not going to lie, it was a really good debate this time.